I've been bothered with losing oil from my gearbox ever since I bought my C15. One major oil leak was coming from where the sprocket is, and by putting a big clart of blue Hylomar over the sprocket, that got rid of that. But I still think I'm leaking oil, and it's not externally, and I think it's internally. Now this is my main shaft bush. Don't know, can you see there's a hole in it? And that main shaft bush goes in there, and the hole actually lines up with a hole that seems to be here. Now I thought that's what the bush was supposed to be like, but Dave Smith, or Rupert Ratio as we affectionately know him, says that shouldn't be there, it should be a plain bush. And he has sold me a plain bush with no drilling in it. So I have the feeling the oil has been leaking from my gearbox, and I have video that I've shown before, I think. It's been leaking out there through the edge of the bush because there's just too much oil being allowed on to the bush. And then that oil will collect in the outer timing cover, and in the outer timing cover there is this little hole here. And that little hole here sucks oil that collects here back into the engine. So I think that my gearbox oil is ending up inside my engine. Now if you ever run your C15 with the outer timing cover off, you will actually see oil being spat out here at this little vent. And that is to reduce the crankcase pressure. Every time the cam turns, it lines up with this hole here and it just spits out the air, but there is some oil also carried with it, and that oil then gets taken back through this little hole. But this little hole, it's clear. Some people have often wondered in the past, do I keep it clear? It is clear. So I'm going to replace the bush with a plain bush and see if that stops me losing so much gearbox oil. Now we're going to try and grind that little notch into the new bush, which stops it from rotating in its housing. It's not perfect, but it might do. Right, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to completely degrease. So this is cellulose thinner. So we'll degrease the bush. I'm also going to use some carb cleaner. Carb cleaner. Now we'll use belt and braces. I'm going to Loctite it in place. Well, here's my gearbox in bits again. And what I'm trying to do is to select the right spacer or the right shim. I have two shims. I had replaced one before because there was just too much play in my main shaft. So this plain looking one came from Rupert Ratio or Dave Smith, and it still seems to be the right spacer to use. When I use this sort of more serrated looking one, there's a fair bit of play. I'll show you my shaft still turns with this thicker one fitted. It's hard doing this one-handed, but the spacer goes there, and then the main shaft feeds in through there. That's the primary cover fitted, just with 3 bolts holding it. My main shaft is turning. You see there's a gear engaged, the back wheel is moving, but it's turning. So even though I'm not feeling much play in it, I'm going to use that spacer.